Hello, everyone. Good morning to you all. Great. Enthusiastic crowd. Let me introduce myself. My name is Dr. Leena Johns, and I'm the Vice President of Global Healthcare at MetLife. I also have an additional title, which is Head of Health and Wellness at Maxis. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the term Maxis, let me give you a brief introduction of Maxis. Maxis is a joint venture company between MetLife and AXA. So basically, Maxis has a father and a mother, and that's MetLife and AXA. What does Maxis do? Well, Maxis is involved in delivering solutions for multinational customers. Okay, we want multinational customers, the big names like HSBC, Shell, BP, Microsoft, Johnson & Johnson, all of these big multinationals to have a single seamless experience across the globe, and those solutions are delivered by Maxis. Okay, so how I'm going to frame my presentation today is I'm going to split it into 3 parts. In the first part, we are going to look at the challenges, the problems, the tears that multinational customers face in the global space. Okay? So 1, challenges. Second, we are going to look at what should be the solutions that global insurer like MetLife or any other global insurer should bring for the problems that the multinationals face. So that's going to be the second part of my presentation. And third, we are going to look at how us, MetLife, how we deliver solutions in the global space for health and wellness for our multinational customers. All right, deal? All right, great. That's how we are going to proceed. So, as I mentioned, this is the problem slide. This is the slide that's looking at all of the challenges and the issues that multinationals face. Number 1 issue that multinationals customers face is rising medical trend. We all know this. Medical trend is a big issue, especially in many parts of the world. Let me take you to this slide quickly before I go back to the prior slide. If you look at this slide, you can see 2017, you can see 2018, and you can see a list of certain regions in the world. Okay? Now, let me ask you to focus on the last section, 2018. Look at the general inflation rates, which is in column, that column, and look at the annual medical trend rates, which is on the last column. What do you see? You see that the general inflation rates, let me point at it, this is the general inflation rates. The general inflation rates is usually in single digits. But look at the medical inflation rates in many parts of the world, particularly Latin America and Caribbean. You can see that it's in double digits. You can also see that even in some regions, it's not in double digits, but if you compare it with the general inflation, it's certainly much higher. Why should multinationals be bothered about this? Why do they care that medical inflation is very high? Well, they care because this medical inflation rates is going to reflect in their premiums, which means the salespeople are going to come for renewal and tell you, your premiums are going up in this part. Your premiums are going up in Latin America by 13%, or your premiums are going up in the UAE by 16%. That is why multinational customers are afraid or fearful of the medical trend, because it reflects directly into their premium. All right? So, that is number 1 problem. So, what do the multinational customers require? They require transparency. They want to know what is going on underneath that medical trend because they want to be ahead of the curve. Before the problem comes, they want to be ahead of the curve and they want to bend the trend. So they need transparency, they need visual clarity as to what is driving the trend in different parts of the world. Makes sense, right? The more you know, the more picture you have, the more you will be prepared to fight the medical inflation, right? So that's one of the challenges. The second challenge that multinational customers face is non-communicable diseases have become the leading cause of death worldwide. Non-communicable diseases are diseases which are not passed from one person to the other. All right, 50 or 60 years ago, if I was giving this presentation, that would have read, communicable diseases are the leading cause of death worldwide. 50 or 60 years ago, but with the advent of modern diagnostic methods, with the advent of medicines and technology, people are living longer lives, but unfortunately, as a result of that, we have something else happening, which is non-communicable diseases, and it's responsible for killing 71% of people worldwide. So I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to change a sentence in the statement. I'm going to replace non-communicable diseases with lifestyle diseases. So let's read the sentence again. Lifestyle diseases are responsible for killing 71% of people worldwide. Imagine that. When you say lifestyle, there's a different connotation to it. That's because it's a disease that has resulted in your body because of a poor lifestyle. What are those diseases? Hypertension, cardiovascular diseases, hyperlipidemic diseases, diabetes, and so on and so forth are responsible. Those are the majority of the non-communicable diseases, and they're responsible for a large number of deaths. Again, why should multinationals be concerned? Well, they should be concerned because their employees are spending a third of their lives in the offices, in their presence. And so employers feel that they have a responsibility. They have a responsibility towards the employees. What are the other factors? There are some more minor ones, and I'm just going to quickly mention them. We also see multinationals facing an increasingly aging workforce. As I mentioned, the advent of medicines and technology have increased the lifespan of people. So you see more older people with diseases even working in multinational area or working or in the workforce. And as a result, the cost of delivering healthcare to them has become quite large. Okay, that's another challenge. Challenge 1, challenge 2, challenge 3. What are the other challenges? Well, in MetLife, we do something called as Employee Benefit Trend Studies, or EBTS studies. We've conducted that in Brazil. I know it's in small print here. We've conducted it in Brazil, in Australia, in Russia, in Chile, in United Arab Emirates, in so many markets where we are present. And the overwhelming story is 80% of employees would rather work for a company that gives them benefits, that's focused on their health, on wellness, rather than work for a company that gives them more money. I was very surprised by this because probably 40 years ago, if you ask my dad, he would have wanted more money. But you see, trends have changed. People want money, yes, but more than money, I want to work for a company that's invested in me, that cares about me, that offers me much more than simply money. Because when I have a situation or a problem in my life, the company that's going to pay me more is probably not going to help me. But the company that is invested in me, that's probably the company that's going to help me. All right, so those are the problem slides, as I mentioned. So, what should you, as a multinational customer, be expecting? What should you expect when you are going to find an insurer to cover you? When you're looking to cover your employees in China, in Vietnam, in Chile, in Brazil, in Mexico, in UAE, in Jordan, in Lebanon, when you're looking for a global insurer, what is it that you should be looking for? Transparency. Number one, you want to work with an insurer who is able to produce data and is able to tell you, not just give you data, here you go, data, no, is able to analyze that data and tell you what are your top drivers in each country. You need to work with a partner, with a global benefits network provider or with a global insurer who's able to give that to you. Easy, right? No. And I'll tell you why. Look at this slide. I know it's very small, but this slide shows you the way data comes into my office from these countries. Look at China. The whole thing is in Chinese. I don't speak Chinese. Look at Greece. No pun intended. This is all Greek to me. It's the same, right? It's all Greek to me, literally. Look at Taiwan. Look at Russia. So language is a big issue. The way claims are captured is in a completely different language. Great. Okay, now let's say I somehow bypass this. I translate everything. Let's look at the way the diagnoses are captured. Look here. You can see this country, they're giving it to me in ICD-10. Great, bravo. At least I have the diagnosis in English and in ICD-10. But if you look closely, people who are familiar with ICD, by the way, ICD, for those who are not familiar, ICD stands for International Classification of Diseases, ICD. It's the way diseases are expressed. So headache has a code. Pregnancy with vomiting has a code. Ear pain has a code. And that's the codes that you are seeing over here. But those who are familiar with ICD will notice that the data coming in from China, after the decimal point, there's only one digit. And ICD usually has 2, 3, 4 digits. So they are missing vital information. You're not getting a lot of clarity into the diagnosis. What about, okay, that's China, fine. What about Taiwan? Oh my God, they are not even giving me ICD-10. They are giving me Taiwanese description. Longhand, headache with vomiting. Can you imagine that? So that means if there is somebody who is coding and he makes a spelling mistake, I get it as a new code, If it's headache, there is a space between head and ache, new code. No space, new code. Can you imagine the travesty of this? Identify drivers. So for example, if you're looking I'm not getting the full details, the whole entire amount of details. So that's another challenge with global diagnostic codings that they use are very different from country to country. I'll give you another example. Diabetes. We know that diabetes is a chronic condition, and when someone suffers from unmanaged diabetes for 7 or 10 years, what happens? The doctor tells me, control your diet, but I'm going back and eating cheesecake. Or I'm eating, what is that thing I like? Pao di queso. I love it. So the doctor is telling me to control, but I'm keeping on eating. What would happen in 7 or 10 years? I will end up with complications of diabetes. What are the complications? I'll just name a few. Diabetes results in complications of the eye called retinopathy. Okay? It can go from a wide spectrum. It can go from simple visual problems or problems with visual acuity, and it can go all the way to blindness. All right, so much so if your sugars are not controlled, this whole screen will fall down like that. Your whole retina can fall out and you will be completely blind just because of eating pao di queso, right? No, just kidding. Just because you have uncontrolled sugars. Another complication of diabetes is kidney nephropathy. It can result initially some values of the lab. Your ammonia is high, your creatinine is high. It can be some lab values, and if you don't manage your condition, you will end up with kidney failure and the need for dialysis. Why am I saying diabetes as an example? Well, if you look in some of the data, the way it is mapped, diabetes has its own code. But all of the visual problems with diabetes are put in the vision code. All of the kidney problems are put in the kidney codes. Let's say you are a client and you want to understand, how are my people in Mexico suffering from diabetes? I want to know the full impact. You will not get it. Why? Because it will only pull a small section. It is not showing you the complications, because the complications with the vision is in another bucket, in the vision bucket. The complications with kidney is in the kidney. The complications with skin ulcer is in the skin disease condition. So you are not getting the full picture, which means one of the job that I have to do is to go in each country data, look at diabetes, and if the complication is in another bucket, pull it and put it in the proper bucket. So you can imagine the amount of rewiring and connection that needs to be done in order to deliver analytics for a multinational customer. That is the reason why many are unable to do this in the global markets. You may be able to do it in a country where the data is clean or mapped well, but when you look at the global markets, it's a very difficult scenario. All right, so what should you be expecting from your global benefits provider or from your global insurer? If you are a multinational and if you want to have your employees, you're looking for coverage, what should you be expecting from your global insurer like MetLife or Maxis? What should you be expecting? Number one, you need to have a clear indication of your medical trends and your cost driver. And you want your insurer to rely on your data, not public data. Let me explain. You know, the public data is available in the WHO site. You must have all seen, if you Google WHO public health data, you will get a lot of hits. So you will see the top public conditions, health conditions for Brazil. You will see the top health conditions for India. You will see the top health conditions for any country that you want. You will see it there. What is the problem in relying only on this data? I'll give you an example. I'm not using the name, but it's a multinational customer, and that customer is present in Brazil. I was sitting with the head of employee benefits of this multinational customer, and she told me, Dr. Leena, I want to do a wellness program in India for my people. We have 20,000 people in India. Can you help me doing a wellness program, something to improve the health of the people in India? And she started continuing. She said, I looked at WHO and I found malaria to be number one, tuberculosis to be the number two medical condition, and number three, I found respiratory conditions as a result of burning wood for dinner. If you are a multinational client, believe me, your people are not coming to office wearing suit and going home and taking wood and burning it for dinner or cooking. No. That is why it is not prudent to rely solely on public data, because the public data is a mix of poor and rich, urban and non-urban, villages and cities, educated and uneducated. It's a mix, which is why in a country like India, you will see tuberculosis, respiratory issues as a result of burning coal to be the top conditions. But if you are Microsoft or PepsiCo or Coca-Cola or Shell or HSBC, your conditions are going to be very different from that. So you want to rely on your own data analytics as opposed to the public data. Of course, public data is a good start. It is a good, inexpensive way to understand what are the top drivers in a country, but relying solely on it to drive your wellness programs, to drive your coverage decisions is not a very good idea. All right, you also, what are the other things that you need to expect from your global insurer? You want them to provide you with wellness based on data drivers. This is very critical. Sometimes I go and visit clients in different countries, in Paris, in London, in Spain, and they are doing wellness programs. But it is not tied with analytics. I'll give you an example. Let's say there's about 1,000 of us in this room, and let us say none of us smoke. Nobody smokes. We are all good people. Let's say one lady walks in and she tells you, I have this beautiful ring, and if you wear this ring, you will hate smoking. You will be cured of any smoking urges. It's anti-smoking ring. And all of you sitting here, oh, it looks very nice. Okay, can I buy the ring? And you all buy the ring, but are you going to use it? No. Why? Because none of us are smokers. So you want your wellness to be driven when you are spending money. And you expect to see a return on investment. You want your wellness programs to be driven by what your data is showing you. Then only can you begin to see a return on investment. So what should be the minimum that your global insurer is able to get you? Well, they should be able to show you a per member per year rate on what your heart desires to know. I want to know PMPY, how much I'm spending on cardiac test in UAE, how much I'm spending on C-section in Mexico, how much I'm spending on room and board in China. They should be able to, at a minimum, tell you per member per year cost. They should be able to tell you, secondly, the trend or the year-over-year change. How much is my trend on mental health in China? Is it going up? Is it going down? I want to know my trend on maternity in Jordan. So they should be able to tell you that. They should also be able to tell you the financial change. How much am I paying more this year for the same service compared to last year? At a minimum, your insurer should be able to tell you these. And when one of this goes high, let's say my trend is going high on mental health, or my trend is going high on cardiac tests, obviously the next question that's going to bubble from within you is, why? Why is it going up? What happened? If someone tells you, I am spending 10 times more for cardiology tests in Dubai than last year, obviously you are going to ask, why? And so your insurer should be able to tell you why based on, is it incidence, is it frequency, or is it unit cost? Let me explain those last three. I know I'm speaking to the choir here. You are all in the insurance industry, so you understand this very well. But I still am compelled to share this very funny example with you. Okay, let's say you are a dad or mom, okay, and you monitor the grocery bill at home, the supermarket bill, okay, and suddenly after a few months you're seeing that the grocery bill is going higher and higher. The trend on grocery bill is going very high. Okay, and you take up all the grocery bills and you look and you see that the consumption of milk in your house has gone very high compared to prior periods. What do? First thing, you call the people who drink milk in your house. In my house, it's usually the children. So what do? You call all the children. Hey guys, what are you doing? Are your friends coming over and drinking milk? Incidents. Suddenly has newer people been showing symptoms of diabetes? Are suddenly newer people consuming a service? Suddenly are newer people, before they were not in our radar, are newer people from the company suddenly utilizing a benefit or a service? That's incidence. That could be one reason that, the trend or the PMPY or the financial change goes high. Okay? Another reason why it could go high is frequency. So we call the children, and the children tell us, no, it is not my friends, but my child is telling me, instead of 1 glass of milk, now I am drinking 10 glasses of milk. What does that mean? The same person, no new person, the same person consuming more services from healthcare. Before, I was a diabetic with only 1 drug. Now I am a diabetic, I need 6 drugs. That's frequency. So that could be another reason why your trend or your per member per year or your financial change has suddenly gone high. What could be the next reason? It's not our kids, it's not the neighbor's kids, but the supermarket that we are buying the milk from has suddenly hiked their price. Why is this information critical? Because your intervention will depend on whether it is incidence, frequency, or unit cost. If it is a supermarket that is raising the price, I will go to another supermarket. If it is the network that's very expensive, I will try to contain my network. If it is frequency, it means the severity of diseases within my people are going higher and higher. I need some new intervention to help them with their disease management. And if it is incidence, that means suddenly this is becoming a major problem for everyone. My intervention will also be different. So you understand why analytics is very critical, because it'll help you manage the direction in which you will go. All right, so this is what we do for our customers. Let me go back to the prior page. We understand the value of good data, and so we do medical dashboard analytics in 40 countries. We are the only global insurer that's able to do it in these many markets. Okay, and it's not been an easy task. It's a very challenging task, as I mentioned earlier. And in 40 markets for a multinational customer, we are able to do a paid and benchmark report. We are able to do a risk stratification report. Basically, the risk stratification report means that all of the employees are stratified into high risk, rising risk, and low risk. This will enable you to identify for which group of your people you need a more intensive approach, and for which people you can do maybe things like a newsletter or health fair. It'll help you to target your interventions accurately for the different strata of people. And we also do what is called as an incurred claims analytics. We do this in Q3 of every year for our multinational customers. This is the analytics that factors in the claims tail or the claims lag. And you will notice that in different countries, there are different claims tail. In UAE, for example, the claims lag is about 6 months. It takes 6 months for claims of a particular year to be 98% complete. That means if I want to do an analysis for 2018, January to December, I have to wait. Jan, Feb, March, April, May, June, July of 2019 is when I can do the analysis. That's the incurred analytics because it factors in the claims lag. Quickly, I want to show you some of the analytical reports that we do. This is page 1 of our report. It's an interactive report, so the client can go in and it's a button he can click. He can drop down the years 2013, 2014, 2015, 16, and he can compare with whichever year he wants to compare. You can also see that there is 3 lines here, 3 trend lines. This is looking at the dark blue line is looking at the global medical trend that is predicted by consultants like Aon, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Marsh. Every year they publish medical trend analysis. So this line is looking at the medical trend published by the consultants. The light blue line is looking at our portfolio in a country. So if this is UAE, this is how our portfolio trend is in that country. And the orange line is the name of the client. It can be Johnson & Johnson, Microsoft, Shell, HSBC. It can be anyone. Okay, and so in one snapshot, they are able to see how their trend is in relation to the consultant's prediction and in relation to our portfolio. You can see some of the other things. I don't want to go into the details because of lack of time. They are able to see, is it employees or dependents that's causing the claims? And you can see visually, the orange color is for the new year, and the gray color is for the previous year. They can make out in this example, employees you can see are this much in size, but look at the claims they produce, disproportionately larger. So the employees are this much, but the claims they are producing is disproportionately larger. And if you look at last year, the employees were much larger, but the claims were shorter or smaller. So you see, you can find out a lot of things from these decks. You can see the different age bands that's causing you the claims. You will also be able to see the benefits. These are the benefits that the employees enjoy: outpatient, inpatient, maternity, dental, vision, so on and so forth. And they'll be able to say how they are utilizing these benefits when compared to our portfolio. All right, now I want to pause here at this particular graph because this graph has helped us identify a lot of issues. I don't know whether you can see here, we have split medicines into brand, generic, and OTC. Brand drugs, generic drugs, and OTC. We found when we did this analytics for the Middle East, I'm talking UAE, Oman, Egypt, Kuwait, Qatar, Lebanon, Jordan, all of these Middle East markets, what we found was that, strangely, everything was branded drugs. Somewhere in the region of $500 to $700 per person per year was spent on branded drugs. Guess how much for generic? 0.2 cents. Imagine that. 0.2 cents versus 750 US dollars. And how did we identify that? Through the analytics. When we went deep into the market, we found that that market is a market where there is no differentiation between brand and generics. If I am a customer, let's say I'm a patient, and I go to the pharmacy, and the pharmacist is giving me brand, in the US, he will tell me you have a co-payment of $75 or $50. Because brand, I have to pay something out of my pocket. And generic is obviously doesn't cost me anything. But we found that in the Middle East, the countries I spoke to you about, there was no differentiation between brand and generic. And we found out this through the analytics. And as a result, we spoke with our clients in that country, and what we have done is obviously make a change. What we have done is work with them to introduce changes in their benefit language so that the branded drugs are available, but available with a co-payment or with an out-of-pocket amount. Another thing that we found in the Middle East market and in many Asian markets was that specialists were the ones visited for everything. I know in Brazil, I heard it's the same thing. Specialist costs drive the cost. In the UAE, I'm just taking an example. If I have a cough, I'm not going to a GP or a primary care. I'm going to the toppest specialist who is $700 consult, when I can get the same thing with a $100 consult. But people were all going to the specialist, and we found the reason why that happened was because there was no primary care infrastructure in many of the Middle Eastern markets. The concept of a GP, the concept of primary care did not exist. So we had to innovate. We had to innovate. How do we bring down the cost for our customers? So what we did is, and you will see it in the wellness when I talk about our wellness in a few minutes, we innovated by partnering with a telemedicine company that went global with us. So they set up local networks of doctors in Egypt, in UAE, in Jordan, in Lebanon, in Chile, in Mexico. They partnered with a network so as to be that primary care layer, to be the general practitioner layer. So that's how we innovated. And how did we innovate on the strength of this? You can see outpatient is about 70% of the cost, and the largest driver in that is consults. And we worked in bringing down our consultations through the innovation that we did through telemedicine. So just quickly going through the reports. Again, this tells you your top disease drivers. As you know, ICD-10 has 21 disease chapters. So this tells you what are the top disease drivers. Chapter 11 is respiratory, musculoskeletal. It shows the top disease drivers. This shows you inpatient, outpatient. This shows you, is it dependents or is it employees? If they click a tab, the whole report comes for dependents. If they click it one more time, the whole thing is for employees. So we have made the system interactive so that clients can go in by themselves and interact with the report and get the data or get the answer they want to have. We also did a male versus female. And yesterday I was talking to MetLife Brazil colleagues, and I was very happy to know about all of the things they are doing towards gender equilibrium and to come to get over gender disparity. And it's very interesting to see the medical conditions suffered by men and women are entirely different. This is based on an actual report, and you will see here that males are suffering from cardiovascular and diabetes, more lifestyle-related diseases, more chronic diseases where the complications are more. and the expense, the long-term expense is more. But if you look at the females and you remove all of the reproduction-related codes, if you remove all of the pregnancy, normal delivery, all of that, you will see what they are suffering from are the opposite. Anemia, not enough nutrition, not taking in iron, vitamin B deficiency. We are seeing a completely different picture between men and women. And MetLife Brazil, as I mentioned, the actuarians there are working on a formula, working on an algorithm. If you are a company that has more women in the workforce, maybe you stand a chance to get your premiums reduced. Because you can see for yourself here, men are suffering from more diseases that have complications and more expensive than the females. Okay, I'm quickly going through these reports, just flashing it to you. I have no time to go through it in details. This is the risk report that we do. We are the only network that is able to do this on a global scale. Basically, what we do is that we take your population and we divide them into high risk, rising risk, and low risk, based on the number of chronic diseases that the employee has, based on their age, based on the class of drugs that they are on. A wide variety of factors are factored in, and we take your whole population and we divide it into high risk, rising risk, and low risk. Why is this important? Because it is important because your high-risk people are people, if I have to give an analogy, it's like a bomb that's already exploded. These people are too expensive and too out of control. They have 5, 6 medical conditions. None of it is properly managed. But your rising risk, this lighter blue, is your tomorrow's bomb blast. Right? This is your tomorrow's most expensive people. You want to target that so that your efforts to bring them should be to bring them to a lower level, the low risk. And you want to make sure your low risk is not climbing high. And so you want to know exactly what are the diseases in each of these different layers or strata. Again, I'm not taking you through the details, but the report dwells into each group. For example, the high risk, what are their top diseases? The rising risk, what are their top diseases? How are they consuming services? For example, we see here the high risk is taking all branded drugs. See, it's an opportunity for you to then tweak your benefits appropriately. We also have a section devoted to diabetes. I spoke a lot about diabetes today, about how it affects the kidney, the eye. So we take that all into consideration and we show you all of the complications. This is a sample of our incurred report. Again, it shows per member per month. It shows you, as I mentioned, the trend. It shows you the trend, the financial change, and the PMPY rates. And when one is going high, it tells you, is it incidence, frequency, or unit cost? Is it new people drinking milk? Is it the same people getting worse? Or is it the unit cost? So you can see how clear and detailed our reports are. And again, this is in global markets, 40 countries. Okay? So these are some of the revelations, some of the innovations we have done based on the analytics. As I mentioned briefly, in the Middle East, we found that specialists were consulted for everything. We also found that branded drugs was the drug of choice. There was no differentiation between brand versus generic, and that was driving up the cost like crazy. What else did we see? In Mexico, we saw that C-sections was a large driver of cost, and it was largely propelled by culture. People in many Latin American countries, it's normal to go and have a C-section. And that's not the case in the sophisticated markets. So again, that was one of the findings. And when we tried to find out, why is it that everyone is going for C-section? Yes, culture is one thing. But we realized that in Mexico, it's mainly an inpatient market, meaning we are seeing the pregnant woman in the 9th month. We are missing out month 0 to 9th months. So we started thinking, can we work with the woman when she really is expecting? Can she improve her nutrition? Can she improve her knowledge? Because we also found in Mexico there was a lot of poor maternal health and a lot of perinatal conditions as a result of not taking care of the expectant mother. And we thought, can we change this? Can we improve on this? And you will see in the innovation how we have done that in Latin American markets. China, quickly to China. In China, you all are very aware that there is a lot of respiratory system diseases in China. You know, the Chinese, they wear the mask. Even when they come to other countries, they wear the mask because they are so used to breathing in polluted air. So obviously, it's a no-brainer. Respiratory system disease will be the #1 condition in China, of course. But you know what our analytics showed? Not just respiratory conditions, but an equally top disease was mental health. Stress, overwork, burnout, all of these were top conditions. How did we discover that? Because you must have heard and read that many of the Asian countries, mental health is a taboo topic. It's a stigma. If you go to the doctor and say, oh, I am fatigued, I have stress, they will think you are a weak person. It's a taboo. You don't want to say that you have stress. So how did we discover that there are very similar claimants under mental health and respiratory? Well, that's because we dwelled deep into the data and we found that mental health conditions are coded in a different way. There is a chapter called Signs and Symptoms Not Classified, and they were pulling all of the mental health into this chapter. So for example, stress-related ulcers, palpitations, sleeplessness, migraine, stress-related, all of this was going to a different chapters, not under mental health. So what did we do? We rewired, we remapped, and then we found out that it was almost the same respiratory and mental health. Okay? And quickly going on in the interest of time, expats was another group of people that we studied. We tried to find out if the expats, when you are sent by your company to Hong Kong or Dubai, you know, it's such a great experience. Your company is sending you as an expat, but are your diseases different from indigenous people in that country? And we found it to be true. Imagine what the #1 condition of expats, irrespective of the market, was. Mental health. Mental health. That's because the expats are often accompanied by their family, the wife and the children, and they have to go to a new school, they have to learn a new language, a new culture, all of it resulting in mental health conditions. But if you ask the multinational, are you doing something about mental health for expats? No. So again, some very critical points that we have found. Okay, so based on our analytics, we sit with multinational customers and we do two things. One is to tweak their benefits. If there's a provider where the cost is going high, we suggest remedies. But also, another important approach is to suggest wellness programs based on what the data is showing us. This is how we have started off our wellness innovations. Very simple. We took it very simple first. What you see over here is called as wellness toolkits. This is available free of cost for all MetLife customers. Basically, what it has is entire toolkit that you need to successfully run a wellness campaign. For example, it has email. What is the email you should write to employees? What should be a flyer? What should be your poster? What should be your survey? What should be a quiz? What should be week 1 program? What should be week 2 program? Everything is included in this toolkit. The toolkit you're seeing here is on heart health. Similarly, you have on back, on maternity, on stress, on a wide variety of topics. This is the latest innovation we have at Maxis. Let me explain this to you. Let's say you are a customer and you have some money, okay? You want to put this in wellness, but you have no idea where to put it. Do you invest in exercise programs? Do you invest in sleep programs? Do you invest in disease management? Do you invest in talk interventions? You're confused. You don't know where you should invest your money. So we give this tool to you, all right? And this tool you can play with. So all of the buttons you can move. And underneath this is connected your data. Remember the reports I showed you? All of those reports are connected through an algorithm, through a formula. And when you move one of these buttons, watch how your claims go up or down. So let me do that. When I move, look at the claims. They are moving down in this case. Let's say I do 2 other conditions, healthy eating and talk interventions, it moved. It could also be that it doesn't move at all. Possible, because if you have in your data, if it is not present, then this will not work at all, right? So through this method, you are able to focus on which program will best suit your population's needs in a particular market. This tool, we worked for over 1.5 years with an actuarial company to develop this tool, and it's called as the WIT, or the Wellness Intelligence Tool. There are some more quick ones in the next 1 minute. I want to quickly go through it. The whole suite of innovations we have done under wellness based on the analytics, based on the medical claim analytics. I spoke to you about the wellness toolkits. I spoke to you about the wellness intelligence tool. The red ones here are provided through a company called CareClicks. We partnered with an external company, and together what we are offering is telemedicine platform. Remember I told you in many countries specialists are visited and all of that, so we hope to attack that issue through the telemedicine platform. Remember again, the doctors are not present in the United States or in the UK. They are all local doctors. And we do that through this particular company that we have partnered with. They also offer us a mental health helpline. It's a 9 to 5 helpline manned by psychologists and psychiatrists. Remember in China, we saw that there were many mental health issues. Similarly for expats, we hope to target that problem we see in the analytics through the mental health helpline. The doctors offer over an hour to 12 sessions for a medical condition. The other services are offered by a company called Intervent in green. And quickly, I just want to point out one thing that they do, which is one-on-one coaching. Remember the high-risk group, which I said was a bomb that already exploded. They are people who are not managing their conditions. Imagine if they have a physician or a coach to do one-on-one coaching with them to improve their health. And that's what this company does. This is an example of a client who worked with us in Mexico. You can see that their loss ratio was 136% when they started working with us in 2014. The medical trend in that country went from 9 to 15, 14%, but you see their loss ratios have managed to break even. They have also found some good takeaways here. You can see that the medical severity, the frequency has come down by 31%. Also, the frequency and the severity both by 31%. They have also got improvements in employee engagement score. It went from 74 to 88. So a great success story. This is a slide from our client. They present it in most of the conferences. But you can see how analytics-driven interventions really make an impact. That brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you all so much for this opportunity and for listening to me. Thank you.